Following the French surrender on June 22nd, the country was split in two, in the northern German-occupied zone and the southern new puppet regime under the French Marshal Philippe Goering, created because the Germans initially lacked both governing all of France by themselves and the Italians who assisted Hitler in their conquest granted a small occupation zones of their own. Award of the occupation. A great shadowing fell across the people of France, quite literally, as the Germans immediately brought French clocks forward one in time, and the darkness arrived and the haze of the host of rules, and now the opposed of Germans. Soon, the legal process of concerning arms from prisoners, legally, and foreign propaganda of the radio stations had been approved by the German government. The aftermath of the invasion, cause of the showing hostility to the occupiers, which the incent gave them free regions of what they wanted and what they did not want. Paris rapidly swarmed by thousands of German soldiers, of famous hotels being taken over by headquarters of Reich military political whiz. The organizing and the additional shade for young deals of wage of Altron, of flooding new capitals' armistice, of the rate of change between the franc and Reichsmark, the 20-1, making the lowest private German able to buy up stock cheese that could smuggle past their commanding officer. Past the commanding officer, the could not be better. The example of ranking members of the German army sit still at the French people, bargaining and leaving France on a daily basis with luxury items, exotic foodstuff, and even precious work of history. But as much as the French people resisted, the glorious and impounded worst of Nazi officials soon opposed the nation. Of the opposing team of the midnight and 6 a.m. This crew would use the baton of the population of the suburbs, pushed forward in multiple times. Response act of disobedience. However, the treatment humiliated even more change with the horizon of the people. The war progressed and the Nazi supply situation deteriorated. All the greater material pressure was sent back to Germany in occupied territory. All the luxury goods of France was replaced with greater flow of insect, of wax and metal, and leather vast of raid trade. The product wage bought the paperwork, reinforced the France cartage of Saussure of the German Reich and the possessed of 1941. The daily cartridges taken by an adult fairly was 400 calories between 200 and 500 comparison to the German citizens of 1941 that was conveniently having 2,000 calories per day. The harsh ambition of the black market, disgust, and for the food market of the German people, of the exalted prices by farmer faced a suffered fines or imprisonment if they were caught, the light of their goods of 30 times official price of the black market was created, informal of the cities, regal version and the faces of the occupations, thanks to agreements like the French people endures hardship and occupation. Still, many citizens are now refugees displaced in the German invasion of division of France, with nearly 2 million French soldiers held captive in many communities of houses and ghost towns. It was a pre-war population of 3 million, falling into 800,000 by the time of the occupation. Many families also remain separate from its individuals of the armistice, which assigned Germany under no circumstance release any prisoners of war taken during the invasion. These men are now hostages to the French people, and they expect to work and release more German drafted military personnel. labor propaganda of posting and the French labor people working on German factories and since of the occupation drew interest draft measure of implementing March 1942 of Hitler's approach to Feinsteigern, the permanent labor development of sorcerer job for Foreign Reich any means necessary, would earn the nickname of the Slaver of Europe. Salvi's first initial conservative corporation was Vichy government France called Relief or Relief Shift. This was a simple concept of free French workers sent to Germany and one French prisoner released. Allowed official in crown of salvation of the great promising and the great homicide people. In more effective propaganda strategy, remote programs, and working abroad for Germany, at last the patriotic and self-sacrifice of the Allied forces landed in Normandy. This reunited their families. This is the life in German occupation France. Bye.